stay tonight. Within the travel industry, there are two different dates to keep in mind. The first is going to be the date of the event, transaction, or whatnot. So when you're running your reports, remember that you're always going to be reporting either transactions or whatnot that happened on that day. That does not mean necessarily that if I book a hotel today, I'm staying tonight. I may be staying a week from now, a month from now, or a year from now. But all that booking activity could happen today. So when you're running your reports, remember that in Adobe, when you're picking dates, you're picking the actual transaction date, not the date of the reservation. There's probably a prop and an EVAR for the actual date of the reservation, and there's not a good, easy way to do date math. And because what I call date math, I don't know if that's an official term, but that would be math like the difference between this time next week and today is 7 or 8 days, depending on how you do the math. That's date math to me, is converting the difference between two dates. I would encourage you guys to stay away from anything that requires date math, simply because you have such a limited time, and it's going to be very time consuming because there's no easy way, because all the data stored in Adobe is actually stored as text. It's not stored as dates. So there's no easy way to do all that math through a custom metric or anything like that. So do be aware of those dates, but I would caution you against it unless you found something and and you really want to go down that road. But I think twice on that one. The other thing that I heard a lot about is that, and I would agree that it's probably very similar here at Southwest, is that for the people using our apps, they're going to be the most loyal customers. They're going to be the ones that travel the most frequently, and the ones that are most likely to know what they're doing, probably. So when they're going in and their conversion rate for a shop to a transaction or a reservation, they're probably going to behave differently than people on the rest of their site. But what I heard from the project was, hey, they want you to be the analyst, so to look at all the things within that channel and report back on it. So there are things like the and I don't know all the details, but I assume there's EVARs for this person or this customer number just unlocked room 53 with their phone. That seemed to be a big feature that they talked a lot about. But there's probably all kinds of other on-site activities that are happening, check in, check out, and some other details. So when they go through and show you guys or tell you guys what all the props and EVARs are, I would definitely go through that list first and map into the things that they outlined as being part of the project or the most important parts of the project. And then kind of to what Alex was saying earlier, that concept of understanding within North America, Latin America, and the other regions where all that activity is happening. And if you use those room nights or the number of rooms that are out there as your denominator, you're going to have a really good metric to say, hey, this hotel chain or this region or this specific hotel has a high adoption rate of room keys and whatnot. And remember that the digital room keys on your phone, that may not be rolled out to every single hotel yet. So if you get down to a granular level, you may find some hotels with high adoption rates, probably more luxury properties, and then less so or none in certain properties. The lower end brands and whatnot may not have that option available. There's also some things to look at which may be like hotel cancellation rates. So how many people book and cancel and when they cancel. I assume that's data that they're going to be tracking. So if they're tracking cancellations, it may be real important to know when that cancellation happens, like on what we call a booking curve. So how many people are booking for tomorrow, how many people are booking for the day after that and the day after that, and it creates a curve, and you use the total number of bookings that happened today as your denominator, and then you say, okay, 4 days out is this many and whatnot. So that may be available in there, and they may do some of that date math for you. So it may be the number of days until stay or things like that. So do keep an eye out for some of those metrics as well. The big thing within the app, I think I heard, was to make sure that you're looking for using those segments, especially for Android, because they called out that there were mistakes with Android. And I assume a few groups will do analysis and forget to exclude or use those segments properly. And so anytime you're thinking about using anything for Android, make sure you're using those segments that they pre-populated in your accounts. Because if you don't, they're probably going to throw away and disqualify or rank you guys really low, because they made that crystal clear that on Android you definitely need to use those segments. The good news is that also if you take out the Android part and you could replace it with their flag for iOS, you basically got all of those segments set up for them as well. So authentication, I remember being one. I forget what the other 2 or 3 were that they had set up, but those are definitely in there. And then I'm trying to think in the hotel space what else, what other fun KPIs that are out there that are kind of obvious. The number of room nights, as well as the average nightly rate, and then I don't know if it's important in the hotel space. I assume it's not, but double occupancy versus, a family of 4. In many cases, the hotel's taking in the same nightly rate, regardless of the number of individuals. But at some of the more exclusive resorts, it may be double occupancy and then, extra fees per person. Another thing to look at, once you get within, because one of the items they called out had to do with the fact, the first thing they mentioned actually, was the fact that they just had a new release. I was actually surprised. It sounds like you guys are going to get real live access directly into what their analysts are seeing on a day-to-day basis as well. But one of the opportunities for you guys to explore was the fact that they just had a new release with some new features. Every time you have a release, there's a potential for new errors to be to come to life, or new problems, or a drop in conversion rate, if you were. So those would be things I would look at very closely. I would look at what you had happening in the weeks leading up to that release of the new version, and then the weeks after. And then I also don't know if they forced the change on customers, but they may have allowed customers to use both the old and the new version of the app. Many apps do that. But if there was a new feature and they wanted everyone to have that feature, they could force them to take the upgrade before using the app. So like if there's a security concern or something like that, we here at Southwest have only forced an upgrade a few times. So we actually have people using a whole bunch of different versions of our app that may be 6 months old, and they may be missing small features, but in theory, the basic site and app is the same. But since they called out that as an opportunity, make sure that you get the app numbers, app version numbers, and are looking at that after, and then figure out what the app version was before. And you can say from this app to this app, this changed. Now, there's something else you should also be aware of in the travel industry that most other people probably won't jump to, and that's what we call seasonality. I highly recommend that the very first thing you do is go in and trend out visits by day and look at the seasonality that exists within there. In one of the graphs they showed they showed that app usage has done nothing but climb almost every single month